I always love that when she says that. It sounds so personal. Recording in progress. Hey, this is Ed Dose and St. Vitus Studios, and today we are talking with Andy Robbins. Andy and I have known each other since I think I was 16 or 17 years old, and he's a great guy. I love this guy. He's always so happy and so nice to talk to. And we're going to talk to him about his band Holy Soldier and other things that he's done. And I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself and tell me how he started, even though I kind of know. We're going to go ahead and let him describe how he started in music and things like that. So, welcome, Andy. I appreciate you being here.
Hi, Ed. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. So, go ahead and tell us about how you got started and everything.
Yeah. As you know, we were both in high school in the mid 80s and both huge rock music fans at that time. And we lived in a pretty special place, what some refer to as Beverly Hills by the Sea.
Right.
And a lot of privileged families up there. And we were kind of with the outcasts and rockers
Right.
segregated into our group. I was kind of remembering too, because I remember how back in those days, if there was like a concert coming to town and tickets went on sale, we just all cut class
Oh, yeah.
and we'd go down to the mall, which is right down the street from the high school.
Right.
And we'd wait for May Company, I think it was, would open up their
Ticket booth.
retracting
Yeah.
steel gate inside, and we'd all drop on the tile floor, roll underneath while the thing was coming up, and run through the furniture department, hurdling couches to be the first one to get in line with the little lady that have the ticket master book on 2 tickets. I can put you in section 12 seat. You just give me something, please. And we'd all be in the back, like knowing the tickets were going on sale. Well, that's how much we loved music, and it really resonated with us through high school. You sang. I played guitar. Then I moved within a few months to playing bass. Played with the local bands. There wasn't a lot of local bands in school, but which
Right.
ones there were, we played with them. And by the time I was 16, however, I got a little bored with trying to make it through high school, because I really had delved so much into being a musician and playing. It Going to school was secondary to staying home and rehearsing, practicing,
Yeah.
getting better.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and I went to a party. One of our contemporaries in high school, Cindy Terazinski, I don't know if you remember the name.
I do.
It was one of her birthday parties, and a friend of mine, just because they were having a keg there, invited me to go down there. And sure, Friday night keg party, I'm in. And one thing led to another, and I bumped into a guy who talked to me about forming a band, and that was my first professional band, Holy Soldier. And they needed a bass player, and I had just started playing bass for probably 6 months at that point.
Wow.
So I wasn't really as proficient. Maybe it was a year. Maybe it was a year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Because I'd played guitar for a while previous to that. And so one thing led to another. He had lived in Torrance, and he had friends in Hans Crypt, and another friend of his lived out in like Alhambra that was a drummer and a guitar player from Garden Grove. And so we based the band in Long Beach at a really nice rehearsal studio. And the rest is kind of history at that point, because we just got into a rehearsal studio that day, and pretty much from that day up until the finish of Holy Soldier, which lasted about 13 years.
Wow.
We rehearsed anywhere from at least once a week to 5 nights a week, writing and bettering, and whatever we could do. If we felt the rhythm section needed to be better, it would be bass and drum rehearsal for the night. We'd take a hard look at our lyrics. We just always refining ourselves. And I ended up becoming more or less the band spokesperson, the band businessman, the band booking agent, until we got signed. And then, you pass those responsibilities on to
Right.
the record company and the publicist. And your booking agency. We got signed to ICM and stuff. So at that point, it became very, very, very nice to focus less on the business,
Just on the
and
music.
more on the music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I have a lot of friends here in Seattle that are in bands that are moving around. I've got a lot of friends all over the United States, actually, that are in bands that are trying to get signed, playing, bars and things like that, trying to get signed, which I think is a little harder today than it was in the 80s. I'm not sure of why, because I'm no longer in a band and I don't have that kind of access to.
I think it's a lot harder, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
it's a lot harder because, and not to cut you off, but I know the answer to that. And that's because labels want to pick up a train that's already rolling. They're
Right.
not going to invest on anyone. There were a lot less genres back then. You had, you know, classic rock back then was the Beatles and the Stones. You know what I
Right.
mean? Now Guns N' Roses is classic rock. So
When you hear Guns N' Roses on the elevator, you know you're old.
yeah. In fact, I think Marcy Playground and some of the more current bands are even classic rock at this point. But it's Deep Purple was always a classic rock band. Even when we were in high school in the 80s, those bands were 10, 12, 15 years old and they were
Right.
considered classic rock.
Right.
They seemed like they were 30 years old back then.
I know.
When you listen to Smoke in the Water in 1983, you're like, oh God, the classic rock song, freedom rock,
That's
and that song's just as strong today as the day it was released as it was the first time we heard it.
Yep.
And so, anyway, not to get off the subject, if you can, be an MC Hammer and sell, 130,000 records out of the trunk of your car, or whatever it was, 13,000, maybe it's
Right.
an exact. You're showing that you've proven that the music's good with really no marketing plan. Because if you look at now what's happening with the artists are breaking, let me grab a couple, like me, I don't understand Machine Gun Kelly. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy's in my news feed. If I go on social media every single day and I'm like, okay, give him a listen, and you can't get 10 seconds into a song. But he's very marketable. He's controversial. I mean, controversy is the biggest marketing sell. If you can, put some sort of piercing through your face, or shave your head if you have a beautiful head of hair, or anything, just to get on the BuzzFeed of you've done something, go to jail, start a fight, spit on somebody, make a big political statement, take a side in politics. Those are the people that we're hearing about right now. It has so much less to do with musicality, musicianship, songwriting, even that really neat concept of people being able to have longevity in their careers, which I respect. You know what I mean? I'm in my 35th year. How crazy that sounds, because I feel like I'm 35. You know what I mean? But I literally have 35 years of the music industry under my belt. Maybe it's more than that, 37, I think it is. And it's, talk about social media. You go on Instagram and you got 12-year-olds, are slapping the bass like crazy and drumming like, oh my goodness. And, they make it look like it's real hard, and they're giving you the grimace faces, and they're really getting into it. And it's more show in their living room and stuff. And, there's something still to be said about the guy who, even you're lucky if you can just keep somebody who shows up on time, pays their dues, contributes towards the rehearsals, or contributes toward the recording, has his passport valid, doesn't forget it when he shows up at the airport, picks up an extra bag at the ticket gate when there's not enough arms, let me grab that. You know what I mean? That's what I think longevity is in this business. I mean, I'm not making as many records today as I made in the 90s. I mean, I made 5 records in the 90s, and now I'm just doing a song here or a song there, or getting to play on somebody's live record.
Right.
But I tour like crazy, and most of my tours are international, or they're on, music festival cruises with, Yes, and Marillion and the likes thereof, Adrian Belew. And so when we can still have a career flourishing and look forward to working, there's a lot of reward in that.
Yeah.
There won't be a label coming and knocking down my doors. I continue to write songs. I continue to collaborate, and I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna be recording a lot in 2022. I thought I'd get a lot of recording done during the pandemic, and it just didn't work out that way. I spent more time studying and taking advanced courses and bass playing with really top shelf instructors. So it kind of sidetracked me from wanting to finish some of these songs that I've written. But while I'm here in Brazil next week, in fact, I'm going to go in for 2 different projects and track 2 different songs for 2 different records. So that's kind of
good.
Cool.
Yeah, for everybody who's watching right now, you're going to hear a delay in the conversation. Andy is actually in Brazil and I'm up here in Seattle. So this is kind of a cool technology. My dad would just look at it and go, "How are you doing that?" But yeah, it's kind of cool the way this works out. When you were just talking about different things like getting in a fight or doing things to get attention, it reminded me that when Alice Cooper was first starting out, and he was trying to get more attention than just his name, Alice Cooper, and how he got that name out there. I remember some story that he had spray painted a whole bunch of pigs and left them loose in Times Square. And then when he did and he numbered them 1 to 100, but he left, number 5, he skipped number 5. So they were looking for all these pigs all over New York City and could never find number 5, pig and stuff like that. And then the album, I can't remember which album it was, but he had a pair of edible undies in the sleeve of the album. And he ordered it overseas. And when it came back, it logged up the customs because it was edible underwear, and they wouldn't let edible things come into the port at that time. So it made the news, and of course him and people like Frank Zappa and Gene Simmons, they always had some kind of thing that they were doing to get attention. Yeah, and now it's everybody does that. Back then it was like, oh my God, what's Gene Simmons doing now? Or what's Alice Cooper doing now to get attention? And now it's every day on your news feed. You see something going on, and it's just attention. That's all it is. It's just
but it was stuff so questionable that even our parents, thought twice about letting us go to their concerts or buying their record.
Right.
I remember that.
Stand for.
Yeah, I remember that well. I remember being at a Tower Records in Century City with my mom, and she was over in the John Denver section. And I walked over to Kiss, and I picked up the album, and I was just looking at it in the aisle, the LP back in those days, admiring the artwork. And she took it out of my hand, put it back. She's like, "You're not buying that," and walked off. That was before. That was like maybe in '77 or something, So it was. Good memories though,
Oh yeah.
I never owned a Kiss record because of that,
Really?
I never owned a Kiss record. It didn't make me want to go out and buy one.
No.
I don't know why.
Wow.
I'm one of the few who's never owned a Kiss record.
I've got a brother that I just found out that I had, PJ Campanella. And he and I apparently share the same father, which I never knew about until a couple of years ago. But he owns everything Kiss. All albums and everything. So whenever I see something special, I pick it up and send it to him. So tell us a little bit about what you did after Holy Soldier, and who you toured with, who you worked with, because I know quite a few people that you've worked with. So why don't you go through the list and tell us who you worked with?
Sure. So Holy Soldier started in '95, and by '98 we had finally went on a indefinite hiatus. We never even wanted to close the door indefinitely, because we all liked each other. It wasn't really anything other than there were stylistic changes happening. Our audience wouldn't allow us to move with the changes. You know, Seattle sound had influenced rock and roll so much, and we dabbled with some of that. And you know, we had our run, and you know, we did well. We did about 400 and something shows around the world during that 13-year period, and I got to know a lot of people being the band spokesperson. And you know, I was always at trade shows. You know, I'd be at the NAMM show, I'd be at you know, New York New Music Seminar, I'd be at South by Southwest. I just always enjoyed the lifestyle of being a musician more than just touring and making records, but you know, having that. So I started getting invitations to work with some really, really good people first in LA. Greg Chasen, who's a bass player, he was in Badlands, played with Jake E. Lee and Ray Gillen and Eric Singer in Badlands.
Nice.
He had played in a band after Badlands called Circle of Silence. And it was with Dave Reese, who was the Accept singer who followed Udo,
Right.
or filled Udo's spot in Accept. Larry Farkas, who was our guitar player from Holy Soldier, who you may remember from Hans Crypt.
Yep.
And then Jay Shellen, who was from Hurricane, and he's now in Yes, the drummer for Yes. So I had a phenomenal band that needed a bass player at that time when Greg left that. Now, Greg is a phenomenal bass player, like one of the best rock bass players you'll ever see. So I was asked to join this band short period until they could find somebody, because they knew I was still in Holy Soldier. And so it was one of the first, I think all this happened around 93. I got asked to be in that band, and then it worked out so well. I was offered the permanent gig, which I turned down to stay in Holy Soldier.
Oh.
And the following month, I was offered the gig in Stryper to be in the new formation of Stryper after Tim Gaines had left, which I passed on that because that was actually 95, to be honest. Actually, 93 was also Dead Artist Syndrome and a band called Die Happy, which was another Greg Chason band that I had to fill his shoes in. Right. So working in LA, I had these 4 opportunities. Oh, and a band called Vengeance, who was really, really, really like a heavy rock band. Yep. So it's kind of cool that there's a shortage of bass players, and I had the reputation that could get the call, and I was just working with everybody in between touring and working with Holy Soldier. Then 95 came, and we changed labels, and that's when Stryper called. And the reason I had turned that down was because of the fact that we were in the midst of signing a new record deal with a new label and planning to move to Nashville and give it our all. Wow. In a different location, which we did. We recorded Promise Man. And then when I moved to Nashville, I saw the session thing as lucrative, but it was also very, pardon the phrase, incestuous, because the same 6 bass players and the same 6 drummers and the same 6 guitar players are playing on everything. You know, right. They just kind of throw them around, but you know, they have their go-to guys, and it's really hard to break into that circle. And I can't stand country music anyway, so it didn't really hurt my feelings, but it showed me, there's a lot. Yeah, I think after you play with the same band for 13 years and you're playing the same songs tour after tour, it's appealing to want to work with other people. Right. Playing with those players like Jay Shellen as a drummer, that raises your level as a bass player. Yeah. Regardless, you know what I mean? You're going to those rehearsals and he's pointing out where you're lagging behind the beat or pushing the beat and giving you things to be cognizant of. And he's not doing it in a bad way. He's doing it in a constructive way. And right. You just note up on those things. Oh my God, I've never noticed that. I have the tendency, on this change or that's on the upbeat or whatever. So it really was appealing to me. So after Holy Soldier broke up or disbanded, went on our hiatus. In 98, I moved to Arizona from Nashville, and I took a couple years off from playing. And when I started playing again, I started doing the session thing, and I started working with Pete Lauren of Trickster. I did his solo touring. He had just put out a new record, a solo record. And we got to open for, Styx and Survivor and another one, Night Ranger, one of those guys. And then shortly thereafter, I started working with Troy Lucetta of Tesla, another great drummer who raised my game. And he had an indie artist that he was investing in and put on a imprint record label that he had. And so really kind of like Neil Diamond meets John Cougar by way of Americana, Tom Petty. It was a really nice gig.
Right.
And worked with that for a while. And then I got kind of lured into the idea of working with the full scale Pink Floyd tribute act.
Right.
And that was kind of interesting because there's no other artist that had ever really inspired me more than Roger Waters and Pink Floyd, David Gilmour. So there was a band that had already been together that broke up that I wanted to play with. And the only reason I never played with them is because basically I never asked. They broke up because they got tired of looking for a bass player. Can you believe it?
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. So unlike me to not say, hey, great, enjoyed the show. Hey, if you ever need a sub or if this guy ever quits, here's my number. So I picked up the remaining pieces of that and put in some of my own pieces. And we had that music company of 9 musicians that would do this full scale show. And we would play like the hockey games at America West Arena. And we'd play Alice Cooper's restaurant out there in Phoenix at Cooperstown. And we'd play the Marquee Theater and we'd play with like Led Zeppelin and different tribute bands would come through. We do the hockey show or the hockey thing, they call it Pink in the Rink. And we play the closing of that. We do Dark Side of the Moon. But inside that we had 3 girls. We had the drummer, the 3-girl backing singer, 2 guitar players and a keyboard player. We could build any kind of show that we wanted to. And one of the keyboard players actually looked and sounded and actually had an Elton John tribute show. So we incorporated this whole Phoenix best players that you can find. We had, an Elton John, Billy Joel, and a Pink Floyd tribute show in this music company. Plus we were doing corporate events. So if somebody wanted biker rock, Southern rock, we do Harley Davidson rallies and stuff. And we do the Leonard Skinner and Freebirds and the, Marshall Tucker. So next thing you know, after about a couple of years of coming out of hiatus, I had about 400 songs under my belt, and some of them I'd play bass, some I'd play guitar. I started singing, even started playing keyboards on some songs. And it was like, wow, it's kind of cool that we were able to, have everybody, we put some of the backing vocals up to sing front. We'd do Pat Benatar and Hart and all this stuff. So it started really getting me into just having that repertoire and I'd start to really study the music and the composing of Elton John and start to really get deeper. And it started really kind of opening me up to wanting more difficult stuff thrown at me. So I ventured into prog eventually. I kept playing the Pink Floyd, as you know, and I'll get to that in a second, but various Pink Floyd tribute groups I'd worked with in Brazil, in Arizona, and eventually I was given the 2015 tour with Brit Floyd. I toured with them on their Space and Time tour, where I got to see you in Salt Lake City.
Yep.
But
Braden was very, very impressed, by the way. It really blew him away. And I don't know if he had started playing bass at that point, but when he saw that show, his playing really blew up. And he is highly annoying to me because he's gotten to the point where he picks up a bass and I'll play him a song and he listens to it once or twice and then we play it again and he plays right along with it. And it's very annoying. So he plays, Paul McCartney stuff, and Paul McCartney's all over the place and he just sits there and does this. And I'm like, yeah, I really hate you, Braden, because it's like, I wish that I could do that kind of thing. And he just goes ahead and does it, and he makes it look so simple.
That's
So yeah, I
awesome.
think you made a
Gift to have that
big
ability.
impression on him that night. So I'm
Well,
sorry,
that's
I interrupted you. So go ahead.
no, no worries at all. No worries. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it was just that thing where, as things were getting thrown at me, and every artist that I knew, would call me up. And if I was busy, and I liked the idea of doing that recording or doing that show or doing that small tour, I would move my schedule around to make it happen. Um, I've been fortunate enough to turn down more work than I accept. And a lot of it is just because I'm just not interested in it musically. I don't, time is very valuable to me. And if I don't see it, I mean, first off, I mean, I can't count how many offers I had, to cross the line into country music just from friends of mine. But I mean, I just don't see myself standing on stage playing that music and really
right.
having, for even if it's a better paycheck, it just doesn't gratify me musically.
Yeah,
So
you got to be, you got to be involved in it. Yeah.
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 So and then there's just been, quite a bit of tours that get thrown at you. You're playing Eastern Europe for somebody who sang for Yngwie Malmsteen back in, a certain period of time, and he can still, do a month's worth of touring in Eastern Europe, but it's $100 a night for the bass player. I can't do those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just unfortunate, but I've had, quite a few things like that thrown at me, which at first sounds appealing because, gosh, who doesn't want to, roll around Eastern Europe for a month
Right.
and all that stuff, but
Right.
I just don't really have the time to, be gone for a month and probably spend more out on the road than I earn.
Right. Right.
Because when I tour, I want to see the pub, I want to see that tobacco store, I want to try a different coffee in every city, and so it's candy store for me. I got to be able to, get my dopamine and enjoy it. So, um, so anyway, but no, I mean, like having that Brit Floyd, that was kind of the pinnacle because, like the night before, we played and saw you in Utah, we had played in Denver at Red Rocks.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And returning there because I'd play there with Holy Soldier back in 1992, but to get there, play in front of 9,900 people and feel the audience singing those songs back,
Right.
when you do a 10-minute version of Comfortably Numb with that full light show and everything's
Yeah.
going and you're looking out at a wall of people and it's almost like I'd be just as happy sitting in the audience as I would being on the stage because just to be part of it, I want to be in the room with that.
Right.
That's because that's what really makes me tick is that music. So, and a lot of the more progressive artists are working with Dave Kersner, who's taken me on some pretty nice tours. He's put me on those festivals at sea with Yes, the Cruise to the Edge every year, and get to do all-star shows where you got guys from Yes and Marillion, and get to work with Harry Waters, Roger's son, and do a full-scale Pink Floyd tribute show with the backing singers that sang with Pink Floyd, Durga and Lorelei McBroom. So those are experiences that we as musicians hold tight and look to do a lot more of, and progressive music is an acquired taste too. A lot of people don't like sitting down and listening to 17-minute songs and people, wailing on keyboards and drums and guitar and, to the point to where it starts to lose its melody. Even it's just all technical and certain types of minds kind of gravitate to it as you start to meet the people that follow it. It's almost like Deadheads. It has its own following. They have festivals in Europe, they have the cruise, they have big festivals in the United States in 3 different cities, and everybody ventures out and goes to all of it, And then, quickly I was able to, kind of make my name in that circle and pick up a bunch of followers on my social media and friends on social media and stay in touch with them. They're just amazing, amazing friends. It's never we're the musician and you're down there, like, you know, how it was when you and I were concert goers and
Right.
going out and seeing our favorite bands. You know, now your favorite band, you probably have their cell phone number and you
Yeah.
know the ability to
Yeah.
instant message them, and you know,
Exactly.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it's totally different. And shame on those band members that don't reply back. You know, I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. Yep.
it's amazing because uh, you know, even I, you know, I still esteem Roger Waters um, like I did as a kid. You know,
Yeah.
nothing's changed, and the more time I've spent with him, and the more encounters I have with him face to face, the more I like the guy. You know,
Right.
the more I
Right.
listen to his interviews, the more I read about him, the more I like the guy. You know,
Right.
and so I like. Would be devastated, you know, if I just went up to shake his hand and he turned his back on me or something. You know,
Yeah.
I just we're not in that era anymore where fans can really afford to lose, you know,
Right.
uh, their followers.
I did that with Iron Maiden when I was shooting Iron Maiden. We went backstage and I saw Steve Harris, and I don't generally ask for selfies because I'm there to do a job. So I don't generally do selfies and stuff like that. But you get to talk to the people that you know you looked at for decades and just blown away, you know. And Steve Harris was is a big influence to me. I mean, I don't know anything about bass. If you said, Ed, play an A, I wouldn't know what the hell you're talking about. But if I can play, you know, if I turn on Iron Maiden downstairs at full blast to where my neighbors who are quarter mile away can hear me, I can play note for note Iron Maiden. But if the record stops, yeah, I'm lost. I have no clue what the hell's going on. But
Well,
you know, it's really cool to meet those people. And you know, when I met Elton John, I got to talk to him for a little while, and it was so funny because I said, I during the conversation, I just kind of looked at him. He goes, "What?" And I said, I really don't want to say this, but it feels like I have to say this. You remind me of my favorite aunt. And he just kind of laughed and he said, "Well, you call me Auntie Elton from now on." And I said, "Okay." So during the show at the Tacoma Dome, I told him to react with me, you know, for the pictures and stuff like that. And there were instances during that concert, and I think there was, I don't even want to guess. Tacoma Dome is the 7th largest indoor arena in the country. So I don't know how many people that is, but there were points during that show, and I'm 6 feet away from him, and there were points in the show where I thought, is this show just for me? Because he's interacting with me so much. And if you had told me when we were 16 and 17 years old that I'd be talking to Pete Townsend or Elton John or you know whoever, anybody behind me on this wall, and it's like, yeah, you know, how are you going to talk to Gene Simmons, or how are you going to talk to Elton John? And you know, it's just amazing. And some of these guys are, and like you were talking about, when you meet them, you there's it's almost like um a complex of some kind where you're like, God, I hope this guy is the hero that I want him to be, and
sure.
not some complete asshole that, you know, you're like, eh. And it totally blows your 3 or 4 decades of music listening of this person. And you think, oh my God, he's a hero. When I met Eddie Van Halen, I was like, wow, he's really cool. A really cool guy. And I remember thinking, he's a cool guitarist. I'd love to meet this guy someday. And when you meet him, he's just like you thought he was going to be. And it's really, really cool. And when the opposite happens, you're like, yeah, and it just leaves this taste in your mouth, like, yeah, I just can't listen to these people anymore, you know,
Mhm.
without having that bad taste come up in your mouth. Anyway,
Sure.
I'm
Sure.
blithering on, which I do every once in a while.
Oh,
So,
that's fine. No,
um,
absolutely. I get it.
yeah, it's really cool. I love that about musicians when you meet them and they're just as cool as, you know, you didn't know this in high school, but when I was living in Phoenix, I was living in Phoenix and Palos Verdes and bouncing back and forth. And the reason that I was bouncing back and forth is Mr. Nicks, Stevie Nicks's father, gave me a job at Compton Terrace. And I
Oh,
was a house roadie. And when concerts came to Compton Terrace, I would drive back to Phoenix and work for him for 3 days and get the stuff done that I needed to get. And then I would go back to Los Angeles. So everybody always wondered why where's Ed? Ed disappeared. So
yeah. Yeah. I
that's
used to
what
wonder the same thing.
that's what I was doing. I was working in Phoenix for Mr. Nicks. But
Yeah, both of my houses that I had when I lived in Phoenix were both pretty close to Compton Terrace. One was in Awatsuki
I
and
would,
the other one was in Ocotillo. So I would pass Compton Terrace. Well, they turned it into a raceway.
right. Well, they
Yeah.
had moved locations. Compton Terrace, where I worked, was over near the river, right between the border of Tempe and Phoenix. It was
Mhm.
right near the river where there was a bridge over there. But then
Okay.
they moved it over to where the raceway is and where people know it to be now. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was special. And Mr. Nicks was uh I should do a whole show on him because he was really incredible guy. He's one of those guys that, who influenced you the most in what you do, and that's him, because
That's
he was very strict, and he'd come up and he'd yell right in your face and get right in your face if you did something wrong, and then he'd pat you on the back and he'd say, okay, go get to work. And you'd like, okay, I'm good. And I remember Def Leppard. There was a Def Leppard concert, and I was just this. You remember me? I was just this little skinny white boy, with hair, and I was working with Mr. Nicks, and I was doing the Def Leppard concert, and I guess the tour manager came in and saw me on the side of the stage and was upset that I was on the side of the stage and was poking me in the chest and get the hell out of here, you stupid kid. And what are you doing here? Because I didn't have a pass because I worked there, so it never
yeah.
occurred to me to wear a pass because everybody knew me. And Mr. Nicks saw what was going on and came over and really started yelling at this guy and shoving his finger in the guy's chest. And this is Eddie. And if Eddie wants to, he can go over there and sing with the singer as he's doing the show. Don't talk to Eddie that way. He works for me, and blah, blah, blah. And as he kept talking, I kept getting taller and taller. And it was like, yeah, that's right, man. You stop talking to me like that, and kind of stuff. And he was a really incredible guy. Anyway, again, I'm just blithering on and on and on and on. So, okay, so um, tell us what you've got in store now, what you're doing now. And I know you're in Brazil for quite a few months, but after that, what are you working on? Are you working on anything down in Brazil?
I did a really neat thing in 2009. Or 2008, I moved to Brazil for a couple of years. And while I was down here, I opened up a production company down here. And for 2 years, I toured with the likes of, I have Joe Lynn Turner of Rainbow, Deep Purple. I brought him down here twice, did about 27 shows with him all around the country.
Wow.
And I did a tour with LA Guns. I did a tour with Paul Di'Anno of Iron Maiden. Um, did a full tour with CJ Ramon of the Ramones and Gene Loves Jezebel. And a lot of these tours, most of them I played bass. Some of them I'd be the musical director. And then like in CJ's case, I just booked his tour managed, and in some cities actually teched for him too.
Right.
But so I have a house down here that I book for because that was kind of like where I had my base out of for Andy Robbins Productions. It's called Bolshoi Pub. And because of COVID, everything's been kind of closed down, but I was producing concerts from afar where I did like Michael Schenker, UFO, helped bring in the Doors and Johnny Winter when he was still alive. And so that's really the extent of what I do, a lot of consulting and booking for that place. We've been trying to bring the likes of like Roger Hodgson from Supertramp in here, and a few other things to do. Stuff where I wouldn't musically be working, but more working on the production aspect. In the United States, I'm slated to do Cruise to the Edge again next year. And I'm still working with Tourniquet. Looks like we're putting together a tour in Argentina for 2022. And I have, which is now going to be probably my 5th incarnation of a Pink Floyd tribute show since I'm living in Miami now. We have a Miami-based tribute show, and it's got members of former Alan Parsons Project, Tears for Fears, Dave Kersner, who's worked with members of Genesis and a lot of other people. So that's probably going to be the peak of the musicality that I could put together, because all these guys are just perfect players for this type of band. We were scheduled to launch, and that got set back because of the pandemic. But you know, like I said, there's a lot of things that you can do when you have that type of downtime, you know, unplanned. You make the most of it. You know, what can you do to better yourself and come out ahead? You know, so I worked a lot on my own individual talent. You know, did a lot of studying, a lot of playing, and
that's why I opened my studio, because there was nothing going on. So I had to open up my own studio just to be able to take pictures. So yeah. And I've learned quite a bit in the past year.
Oh, I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And you know, it's you know, it's humans are funny, you know, because if before the pandemic, everybody all working their 60 hours a week and stressed out and too much work. I mean, most of the artists that I work with, like Brit Floyd, they do 152 shows a year. I mean, 365 days they're on the road, you know, doing 152 shows. They got a few different 3-week breaks and 6-week breaks, but you know, in their downtime, they're resting. The musical directors, you know, conceptualizing the next tour. You know, the booking agent's already booking the next year's tour. I mean, they're going in, sometimes it's like a cookie cutter, like a template. I mean, literally they'll be in Miami at the Fillmore on May 30th, you know, 2019, and May 30th, 2018. You know what I mean?
Right.
Back to back, the same day, same time, whatever. I mean, they literally almost have the same tour month in and month out, the same places at the same time, because it's just that much of a success, and it just keeps going. And really, you know, that type of show, all they're waiting for is Roger Waters to retire, and David Gilmour to fully retire, because the only choices you're going to have to see that music is going to be, you know, one of the 4 or 5 notable ones that have a full scale show with the lights and the great sound system and the, you know, the multimedia and the lasers and what you expect that you want to see accompany that great music, you know. But we're putting something to that level together in Miami. So I'll be working hard on that after the beginning of this year. I'm spending the rest. I got a little cabin fever at home, so since the 4th of July, I took off and I spent 7 weeks in the Bahamas, and then I went home Fort Lauderdale for 2 weeks just to do my laundry and dry cleaning. Yeah, and then I've been in Brazil since you know, September 20th, and I'm going to be here through November, and then got a trip planned to Mexico, and then thinking about spending Christmas in Sweden. So I'm riding out till the end of the year and visiting friends and family, and then really looking to delve back into music right in January and hit the ground running.
Well, if you need a personal photographer for all these places that you're going here in the future, just let me know.
Why wouldn't I? Look at all those great pictures you take.
That'd be great. Okay, so that's what you're doing in the future. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm going to bring this to a close, because we're looking at almost an hour here. So I'm going to let you go. I know you got a lot of things to do down there, and have a lot of fun down there. But I so much appreciate you coming on, Andy, and it's so good to
pleasure is
see
all
your
mine.
face. and talk to you. And it's been a long time. So I really
Yes.
appreciate you coming in. And if you know anybody that would like to do this, let me know and I'll get in contact with them, and we'll try to set it up. Because one of the things that I've done this for is to inspire upcoming artists to not give up, especially during COVID, and to just keep pushing, because we've lost an awful lot of artistic talent that's out there, because you can't do shows and things are getting hard to get done and get signed and go on tour and things like that. And I think a lot of really good talent is getting lost in the shuffle and falling through the cracks. And the reason that I did this is to help encourage them to just, keep fighting and keep trying to do something to continue what they're doing and express themselves. So I really
Right.
appreciate you coming on, and I'm going to put the links to all your information down below in the YouTube.
Sure.
I always sound like an old guy when I say that, in the YouTube.
YouTube.
On the internet. So down below is going to be all the links to get everything. And I'm going to add some pictures and things like that you sent me down here in the middle, so people can see what we're talking about. And they're not going to be in any order, but you'll get to see Andy in all his glory. So again, I really appreciate you, Andy. Thank you so much for taking the time
My
to talk
pleasure.
with
Thank
us.
you.
Yep, I love you, buddy. So I'll
Love
see you when you come here, or we can do a Zoom meeting again just to talk.
I look forward to that.
All right,
Absolutely.
bud. Love you.
Love you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.